So thank you for coming. Like Amy was saying, I had the opportunity to travel to Finland this year. Actually, my family came with me because my husband said, well, if you're going on a business trip, then we're all joining you on this business trip. So they also had the opportunity to come with us, which was really incredible. But Mommy was there to work, and work I did, and I learned a lot. And as educators, we know that when we research and we learn things, there's nothing like seeing it firsthand, right? And you'll see that in your presentation, just like kids learn better when it's hands-on, so do we as adults. So when I went to Finland, everything I read about, I expected to see, and I saw everything and more. And so what the books say is really true. So my first, the title of this presentation is called Why Finland? 8 Reasons Why Finland's on Top of Its Education Game. And those of you may know anything about Finland, may not, but recently they have been #1 in education for a long time. Literacy, science, math, they've been on top of their game. And people in America are, how is this country doing what we strive to do? And sometimes some people are great at it, some schools are not, some places in the United States, do it better. But why, as a whole country, are they doing things right? And right here I was saying, do not ask me to pronounce it, because I learned one word while I was in Finland, and it was kiitos, and that means thank you. But the rest of it, I don't know. But I chose to say this because one of the things that I appreciated while I was there, especially, being a nervous American and always on the go, and they are very present. So when they are here, and they are, wherever they are focusing on that. And after I can share with you after the presentation, I wrote some articles. And one of the articles that I talked about is the honking phenomenon. Because the entire time we were there, we heard nobody honk. And so I asked somebody, I said, why aren't you honking? And they said, well, clearly whomever is in front of us is there because they need to be there and something is going on. So why should I honk? And I'll just, be patient. So when I saw this, it really resonated with me because the Finns are present at all times, and they're not always worrying about what else is going on. So I thought that that was an important message. Okay, here's Finland, right? It's a country with a small population. I just saw in 2018 they had 5.4 million people across the country, so it's not, humongous. But why are they making such a huge impact on the educational world? And I have a short video clip that I would like to show you before we continue. That could give you some excellent insight as to what this presentation is going to be about. Thank you, Terry.
On the outskirts of Helsinki, the Ranias are getting ready for school. Rumas and Tina have 4 children. 3 of this hungry bunch are all educated at their local state school. For the girls, it's a short walk away. Topranimäki Comprehensive is a secondary and primary school rolled into one. The first lesson about school in Finland is relax. Take your shoes off when you arrive. And when you get into the classroom, your teachers by their first name. This is Mariana. Because her pupils stay at the same school for so many years, she's been their teacher for most of their school life.
I'm like growing up with my children, my students, and I see the problems they probably have when they are small, when they come to school. And now, after 5 years, I still know and I still see what has happened in their youth. What is the best thing that they can do? I tell them that I'm in school.
controversial maybe, but something they say works.
It's very important to have everyone in the same class, but of course that creates a problem every now and then because there are some that are really, really, for instance, in English, they're fluent in English, they're very good, and then there are some that need special attention, but of course we try to give that to them.
Giving pupils extra help is standard practice. In this class, there are 3 teachers. A silly teacher double lesson. Marvin just works with those who struggle. And it's the teachers here that would make any education secretary go green with envy. They're the key ingredient. Why in a subject like science the Finn scores so high? Teachers all have to complete a master's degree. Trust is important here. In PE, the kids head off unaccompanied for a long cross-country ski. Their effortless ease in achieving quality education is shown off by one statistic. Children here do the least number of class hours per week in the developed world and get the best results. What is the secret of Finland's education success? The head teacher gives his teachers much of the credit. But another reason is the T word again. Trust, this time in him.
Nobody outside is saying that you have to do like this or like that. And the feeling is that they trust us. This is my school. It's not politicians' schools.
In countries like the UK and the US, education is built around the idea of competition. Some schools will succeed and some won't. Incredibly though, the results of this school in Helsinki are actually the same as any other school in Finland. And that means there's no such thing as a failing Finnish school. Finland's success has kick-started a kind of education tourism. More than 100 foreign delegations visited last year. But the woman in charge admits there's still room for improvement.
Finnish system, it supports very much those pupils who has learning difficulties, but we have to pay more attention also for those pupils who are very talented. And now we have started a pilot project around it also, that how to support those pupils who are very gifted in some areas.
We called on one of the country's biggest success stories. What do Finnish businesses want for the future? For the Finnish mobile phone giant, it's about maintaining high standards in the core subjects and consistency across the workforce.
What we want the education system in Finland to continue doing is to keep a very good level in mathematics, science and technology related subjects. Being in a classroom with less talented people, it makes you as a talented pupil able to teach the other ones, to work in a group with different kind of people and to accept diversity.
So back to the Ranias and the youngest in their family. Otto is 6, and like all children in Finland, he won't start at proper school until he's 7. The thinking that by then he'll be itching to start classes, but in the meantime, it's lessons with Mum at home. How was your day at school today?
I really like the Dexter's class.
Like Tina's spaghetti bolognese, Finland's success is part homemade.
It's very interesting to hear what they've done.
They have a culture here of valuing education, and parents know they have a key role to play too.
There's sort of a training you can say so that the parents they tell the kids and take this to school and the teachers and acting by the Finnish system so at least try to encourage that. I think at least in our school.
Explaining why the Finns score high isn't easy. Like other European countries, Finland has very little immigration, so when pupils start learning, language isn't a problem. But their system's success is built upon the idea of less can be more. You have relaxed schools, free from politicians, where nobody gets left behind. Tom Murray, BBC News, in Helsinki.
Okay, so presentation over, because they told you everything you need to know, right? But so a lot of my presentation has a lot of the parts that you saw in that video, but I want to say that in my cohort, some of the people actually went to that school. I didn't, but, so that's a real thing that you saw. The kids come in everywhere, they take their shoes off. They have outdoor clothes, they have indoor clothes. And you see it's a much more relaxing environment. How many of you let your kids take their shoes off in your classrooms? Good. Okay. Can I ask what made you decide to do that?
I teach kids who struggle,
Okay,
and anything that can help them focus and be more comfortable makes them fish.
right, good. What about you, Patty?
Sometimes it's muddy outside.
Uh-huh.
And then once they did it the first time, they saw they liked it. As long as it doesn't interfere with learning Chumash, why not?
Exactly. And did you notice any change in the learning environment if they were more comfortable?
No, not
Okay.
one way or another.
Okay. So we're gonna see in the slide actually that, how they keep things stored in the kindergarten, right? So because of, it's muddy, right? They don't want you bringing in the outdoor junk into the classroom. The classroom is supposed to be a safe, clean environment. So like you just said, why are you gonna bring that in? So that's part of the reason why they do it. Okay, cooperation versus competition. Okay, so they talked a little bit about that in the video, but Finland's education system knows that the proper way to have success in children is for everybody to cooperate together. There's no competition among the schools. They all have the same curriculum, right, that's deemed from the Ministry of Education. And like you saw, they do not have politicians telling them, and everything is funded through public money. So there's no reason to, I'm gonna do this, you're gonna do this, I'm gonna be better, I'm gonna be better. No, they know that the best way to do that is to collaborate. So this is a big word in there. And I love this sentence here. There's no word for accountability in Finnish. I thought that was very interesting. But education expert Pasi Salberg, you'll hear his name mentioned often. He talks a lot about that T word, trust. And that was one of the biggest things that I learned when I was there, is that everybody trusts each other. I can't even imagine letting my students go on a cross-country skiing exhibition by themselves. That would be crazy. Can't let my kids go out of their house and go next door, right? So after coming back from Finland, that was one of the things that I tried to work on for myself, is how to just trust in other people. But 90% of what we're gonna hear, it's cultural. And when we're living in America, these things, they just don't resonate with us. But here, they do. There are basically no private schools in Finland. Everything is public. But in the early childhood, they started having more private schools. And what I found that was interesting, and I really didn't get a great answer as to why they're even having them, but like I said, they have to follow the same curriculum. So it's kind of a mystery as to why they're starting all these different private schools when the public schools are free and they're all teaching the same things. So I haven't gotten a good answer for that yet.
It's not because there's no preschool?
No, they're preschools.
Oh, because they said kids don't start.
They do. I don't know why. They don't start primary school until age 7, but they have, their early childhood is one of the most things that they're famous for. So I don't know why they said that. I wonder if that child just didn't choose to go. But everybody, you know, I'm going to talk about that, has an opportunity to go, and it's free. Okay, teaching is one of the most respected professions. Let's let that sit in for a second. Because I feel nowadays, and I want this to be interactive, so feel free to, you know, say something if you want, but I feel nowadays that unfortunately teaching has not been appreciated as much as it was previously. Does anyone feel that way? It's okay, you can raise your hands if you do. Everyone feels valued as an educator? No, okay, right, so in Finland, it's still one of the most respected professions. It is of the utmost respect. I know we're not talking about Hawaii, but I happen to teach in Hawaii, and also there, you know, in America, right, it's nice to see, it's also respected. So they treat them like royalty, and in Finland also, teachers are very, very, very highly respected. So you see how I wrote, Finland pays better. So,
I don't want to interrupt you, but
Yeah.
I had heard that Hawaii had one of the worst education systems. in
worst,
time.
they're 50 out of 50, but they still respect their teachers.
Oh, okay.
And they still value them as educators and as professionals, right? I think that's the key word, right? And so in Finland, they are looked at as professionals. And again, we're gonna go back to the trusting word. So if you're a teacher, you're respected because you've gotten your master's degree, right? So everybody who's a teacher has to go through that same program, and you have to have a high-level degree, and you have to have a master's degree. They go through what's the equivalency here of somebody going in a residency program in medical school. So there's a lot to go through in order to become that. Yes?
Are the colleges also publicly funded?
Yes. Again, a lot of it is cultural, right? So they want to become professionals because why not? Yes.
Are the master's degrees in education or in their content area?
So they're in education. And in the secondary schools, they have the breakouts of a concentration. And I'm actually not sure what they do for that. It's a good question. I don't know exactly how they do that, but the master's is in education, yeah. So as you see here, the teachers, they know what they're doing, right? So you're not gonna find somebody that is not current on what's going on in the education world and the research. And like I said, we were talking about cooperation, right, and collaboration. Everyone is on the same page because they're going through the same things together. So it's a very nice way to have an interaction. It's not, oh, you went to this school, I went to that school, we learned this, we learned that. So they have a variety, I think it's 31 different universities throughout the country, but they're all learning in the same way and having the same degrees after. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Could you say more about the residency program? Like, do you know, like, it's like they follow a teacher, they work as like a student teacher?
Right, so that's a great question. So they work as a student teacher, same as we would do in America, but the elementary schools, they have affiliations with the colleges. So again, it's that same collaboration, so the colleges are working with the elementary schools, kind of like here in America, but it's a little bit more extensive. So they're giving them what to work on, and they're giving them what to work on, so it's a little bit more cohesive. Okay, Finland listens to the research. In Finland, research comes with virtually no political baggage, right? Now, how many of you work in private schools? Anybody in public? No? Okay. So when we talk about politics, right? So when you're in a private school, it's not, you know, you have government and you have politics like that, but you could talk about politics in other ways. You could talk about your board politics. You could talk about your parent politics, right? There's a lot of politics, right? But in Finland, it doesn't come with that, right? So they are doing studies themselves because they are listening to the teachers, and they, more importantly, are listening to the students. You'll see a little bit later that they ask the students, well, what do you want, right? What do you want on your playground? What do you want to eat? What do you think is a good option? And they listen to them, and they make their curriculums around that, and that's in all levels, right? So they're not, even though they have the Ministry of Education and they have their curriculum to follow, teachers have the autonomy to really do what they need to do. And they are not having standardized testings like we are having also. They have, I alluded to it before, but I didn't mention it really, that they have to take what's called PISA exams every 4 years. But other than that, they are not bound by standardized testings. The teachers make it themselves, and they create the assessments that they need based on their curriculum. Any questions? All right, well, anybody here who knows me knows that I appreciate a healthy lifestyle and healthy food. And before I went to Finland, one of the things that constantly kept coming up into my research are the healthy lunches that are provided for the students. So when you're in a primary school, which is grades 1 through 6, you are given one healthy meal every single day, and that is for lunch. So if you look here in this right picture, that was when I was at the primary school. And it's hard to tell, but they have this beautiful salad bar set up with tons of vegetables and salads, and then their hot lunch. I forgot what they were having that day. And then, I don't have the picture up, but then they have this beautiful setup of different breads and jellies and butters, and
Fish.
you know, it was just amazing.
Fish. They already have fish in Finland.
Fish? Oh, I don't, actually, they weren't serving fish that day. Now I remember what they were serving. They were serving like what we would say is like schnitzel, but it was probably not fried.
So I do have a question. Do the
Sure.
teachers eat with the students?
Oh, yes, I'm gonna get to that, yes. The teachers do eat with the students, and it's all a part of this teacher involvement here that I have at the bottom, and social etiquette. So it's hard to see again, but in this primary school, the kids, you know, like they have this in public school. Kids take their trays and they walk and they put it in the back behind, right? And they put it back. But normally you have somebody behind there that's washing the dishes, right? Well, not here. There's rotation. And the kids are taught how to wash, how to put things away. And when there's, yes, exactly. And you want to say that? I don't know if everyone heard it, but.
Japan is like that too.
Yes.
Every kid walks in, second they walk in the classroom, and they don't have their shoes on.
Right.
They're sweeping the floors,
Mhm.
each kid has a different job.
Yep. And it's all part of those table manners that are there. And if you look in the middle, this was when I was in the kindergarten classroom. And here I am with my kosher bag lunch, and everyone's sitting here eating what I'd serve on a Friday night, hot meat soup with tons of vegetables and a heart-shaped whole grain bread. And I was just like, oh, why are we living here? So that was very impressive to me.
How many Jews are
There was 1,200.
Here's the fire alarm. We're gonna set the fire alarm if you didn't hear because it's just a joke.
Than what we have.
I'm sorry, it'll only last like
65, and I only know that because we went to Chabad.
Yeah, I'm just-
1,265.
I'm
In
just wondering
Helsinki.
if I should move or not.
I know, right? I'm right there with you.
Can I ask
Um,
you, while the alarm
Yes.
you mentioned a lot about culture,
Yes,
and in the video it said that the school day is much shorter.
yes.
How does the culture accommodate for taking care of the children for the amount of time that we need to have our children?
Great question. So it's interesting that, did you guys all hear Indian? Yeah? Okay. So it's interesting that you asked that question because we saw a lot of kids just walking around, right? And so in another little video clip, you'll see kids, they don't have an age as to what kids can stay home. So here, what is it, 8? Right? So there, they don't have that age limit. So kids walk home with keys around their necks and they are off. So a lot of parents, you know, because it's cultural, they don't mind that. But some actually have said, we don't want our kids just coming home from school and kind of just sitting there because everybody works pretty much. And the government, of course, said, well, we're going to take the reins on this. And they started after-school programs, free. What we would say like would be, I guess, the equivalent of like intramurals.
If he mentioned theater in the video, so
Yeah.
his kid mentioned theater.
Right.
I suppose that was probably-
Exactly. So that's what it is. But what my supervisor, whatever his title is, that was with me, was telling me that the kids don't want to go to these programs. So he was saying that they haven't been progressing in certain areas as well because the kids just want to go home, even though their school day is so relaxing and short. They kind of just want to go home and hang out. So I'm going to be interested to see how this plays out in the future. But yeah, they instituted that.
Isn't another factor that maternity leave in Finland is like
1 year.
1 year plus the alternate parents? You can have 1 year for the mother, 1 year for the father. So a lot of parents during their childbearing years are actually home.
Once everyone's happy. Everyone's so happy. And you were telling me they give a package, right? They give you this beautiful maternity package when you after you have a baby, and it's set with clothes and all these different things. And yeah, another thing is
Yeah, I asked what's the income tax rate,
It's
yeah.
a
that's-
socialistic.
Okay, but they must pay really high taxes if they go
They
home.
do.
and bang
We're
for all
getting-
the
They
kids.
do.
What Americans forget about taxes is you pay it in the front or you pay it in the back.
Right, okay, but still.
Listen,
It's like
a
living in a
reasonable-
kibbutz. That's exactly right. You get everything you need, and you put it all back in, and you'll get it all back. Like,
But you
What
know,
do you?
so
What
much
else do you
so
need? Right, but you're talking about free.
Yeah.
It's funded some way.
Exactly, nothing's ever free. But
Right.
but there are lots of ways to look at it. And when I was with people from all over the country that came to these workshops, right? So someone from England, and they have the same type of economy. There was a woman from Bermuda. There was me from America. There was another person from America. She was from Texas. Where was the other people from again? Slovakia, all over the place, right? And so, you know, somebody made the comment like, well, everybody just kind of like follows each other and does the same things. But, you know, the Finns were saying that they don't look at their life like that, right? Just the same as it here. It expert on it just from asking the questions when I was there. But I think that overall, it's a very happy culture. We didn't really come across anybody when we were staying in our apartment or whether I was here or there. Everybody was so friendly and nice and you know, happy. So I guess it doesn't bother them.
So if you take the politics aside, there are cultural implications and the educational ones.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I think
Politics
with
are politics.
anything, right? But, you know, at least in the education world, they don't feel bogged down by any politics, and that's across the whole entire country. And that was one of the major things that, you know, I've read about and that was stressed when I was there. Should I keep going or should I wait?
Can I summarize? They're doing the antithesis of what we do in Baltimore public schools. It's that simple,
Okay,
right?
go on.
No, they're doing the antithesis.
That's good.
In Baltimore, we do everything the reverse. There's no respect for the teachers within the community. The children have no respect for the teachers. So what kind of learning can go on? You know, there's no support for young children when they're first born, whether it's a single family or whatever, to start those first years or so in a safe, protective manner where the parent or parents are with that child. It's just absolutely the opposite here.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that's just Baltimore, you know, I think that's a
Yeah,
lot
I
of
mean, a lot of
places around.
places regrettably.
Absolutely, and I think that's why it's important that we, you know, Americans and educators are able to, you know, be here and learn about it and go and travel and see different things and whatever we can take from that, right? Like I said, 90% is cultural, but what we can take from that, hopefully you can bring, you know, back here and try to change things. So I said a lot about healthy because obviously that's really important to me. But the last picture here on the left was also when I was in the kindergarten, and it's hard to see, but there are long tables set up. And yet again, the kids are in charge of setting up the tables, cleaning up the tables, even as young as 6 years old, because there's no reason not to. And the way that their EC is structured, again, I'm going to say. So when you're, you know, if a parent goes back to work, right, after a year, a child can enter that system and they can be there until they're 6, and they call it, blanking, but we call it kindergarten, it's equivalent to kindergarten, but they pick and choose, like it's a really weird system. They have a certain amount of hours set up that you're allowed to be in the system, and you can have up to 20 hours or something extra if you need it. So they're open, right, when they're younger from like 6 a.m. until 6 p.m., excuse me, and then if they're there that long, then they're offered the 3 meals per day. And that is a breakfast, lunch, and a healthy snack. And that was the other funny thing. So when my children were there, they met other little children, and my kids were snacking, and snacking, and snacking. And these kids were like, looking at them like, what is wrong with you? So I asked somebody about that, and they don't snack. So in schools, even in the upper school, they're allowed to have like a snack in the later time. But in the younger schools, they get one snack that is provided, whether it's a yogurt or it's a fruit or this or that, and that's it. And something more important to that is they have to try everything. It is a rule in the country. I'm telling you, it was not, I'm telling you, they said it in one school. I went to another school and I asked them about it, and they're like, yep, they have to try it. Yeah, wow.
She was first.
Go ahead.
Do they have allergy?
I did not ask.
2 questions.
Well, they're not free.
How is
so-
discipline handled? And if a child is a little more challenged than others, how is that handled within a classroom until it's to the point where obviously they really need to be in a totally separate setting?
Right. So I'm going to answer to the best of my ability because I don't know 100%. But what I do know is, let's say in the younger school, the ratio, right, is they have 3 teachers in the classroom. And they have one specific teacher. I think they said a little bit about this in the video.
That's in the older grades also?
Yes, dedicated to any child that has any sort of problems, whether that's a learning problem, whether it's a behavior problem. They have somebody dedicated to them. And what's also good to note is that that person also went through the equivalency of the same education level as a teacher. When you are in the preschool, it's a little bit different. They call them nurses, so their degrees are a little bit different, but again, they're still going through the same type of education process. But it's funny that you say that, because in both of the schools that I went to, so I was in a kindergarten environment for 2 days, and then I was in a primary school the other time. And it was a 1st grade and a 5th grade. And the entire time I was there, I was like this. Because I was waiting for somebody to like shout out, for someone to say something, chutzpah. I was waiting for it. And I was with another American, I was saying from Texas, and her and I were just looking at each other, and we knew what we were thinking. So in the kindergarten classroom, we saw one boy, very adorable, sweet little kid. For sure, you know, we would say here that he had some attention and focusing type of things. So he's laying on the couch. They have a couch set up in one of the play areas in the kindergarten, and he's hanging over the couch, and his hands are on the floor, his feet are up here, and he's looking around, and all the rest of the kids are paying attention to the teacher. So this is one of their teacher-guided lessons. So they have that for 1 hour in the kindergartens, and the rest of the day is basically play and lunch. And I was waiting to see like what was going to happen, right? And again, I told you that there are 3 teachers in the room. So one was sitting next to him, one was teaching, and one was with a bunch of other kids somewhere else. They just let him be. And at one point, the teacher went over to him, and she just put her hand like that, and she said, "How you doing, Aki?" He said, "Good." And that was the end of it. And so I spoke to the kindergarten teacher after, and she was telling me that from the start of their school in August, right? She's like, we prepare the kids for what we want them to do. So if we want them to ignore certain behaviors, we're gonna prepare them for that. And the best way to do that, we know as educators, is to model that, right? So anytime a child would do something that was, I guess, you know, that was highly, I guess, not inappropriate, meaning they had to deal with it, they ignored it. And so once the teacher ignored it, the children just got used to ignoring it, right? So I was there in April. So I'm sure that kid was doing this throughout the rest of the month, but they were so used to it that nobody paid attention to it. And he was just kind of left alone to do what he needed to do. And then once they broke from that, he got right back in the group. And then they all, 2 by 2, walked outside, put their wellies on. They were going out and putting their outdoor shoes on. And it was like, great, let's move on. So that was my friend who was there. Really, I know I'm going off, but this is also important to note, that you asked that question, was in a secondary school, so that's a high school. Girl was sitting there on her cell phone, and she was ordering boots, right? The teacher said nothing, just kept on teaching. When the girl was done ordering her boots, she put her cell phone down, went straight back to what she was doing. At the end of the class, the teacher walked over to her and said, "What kind of boots did you order?" The girl said, blah, 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 I don't remember the name of the boots. And the teacher said, "Awesome, can't wait to see you tomorrow." The end of the conversation. Now, right, you're like, oh, what does that mean, right? So you can interpret that in a few different ways. Does anyone want to try to interpret that?
Well, if there were a group of adults sitting in a room and somebody needed to zone out, it would be unlikely to be punitive in any way.
Okay.
So they, at one level, respected that she needed to do what she needed to do, and she needed to do it for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
The opposite of that is that we would have perceived that as a lack of respect.
Mm-hmm.
So if the teacher didn't have that as a personal affront,
Mm-hmm.
you know, she did what she needed to do.
Right.
But without accountability, meaning, so then she missed a component of a lesson, and that would drive us crazy.
It would drive us crazy, right? But did she really miss a portion of it?
But to go along with Amy and, but step further, by ordering those boots, maybe that's all that was driving her crazy, and she wasn't able to focus until she ordered the boots, and then she got her focus back by ordering the boots, and she was right with the lesson.
We won't even allow a cell phone in the classroom, so
Right,
that
but
wouldn't
we
even
don't-
happen.
right, but we leave them in the,
Well,
right.
no, they're just,
Exactly, right, yes.
it was just that word trust.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There were a few words that were thrown around. Trust, accountability, and we're gonna get this towards the end, confidence. The teacher had confidence within herself and what she was teaching, that she didn't need to remark at that point. And, you know, what she said to the friend, my friend asked her about that, she's like, you knew she was ordering the boots? I'm like, you didn't say anything? And again, this is third hand, but my friend said that the teacher said, she was like, she needed to do what she needed to do at that time. If I went over and made a big deal about it, it would have been a much bigger deal. But you saw, she ordered the boots, she put the phone down, she went right back to the lesson. This is a good student. Like, the teacher just knew the kid and knew, like what you're saying, at that moment that she needed to do that, and it wasn't really affecting anybody else, so order your boots.
I think it also says something about their level of professionalism, that they're familiar enough with child development to know, like, when at what age do you need to continue teaching those skills, and at what age, like, oh, she knows,
Yeah.
we just have to trust her.
Yeah, totally.
So in the primary school, did you see any misbehavior in like the first or the fifth grade?
I'm telling you, I waited. No, they're not perfect. It was just that, okay, so I'm gonna get to this next slide, because, oh goodness, can I have longer than one phone? They know that playtime is invaluable. So when they're not at playtime, they are focused on what they are doing, right? And this is something that we can easily bring back into our schools, and something that I really try to do in my school. And, in the elementary schools, it's a little bit easier than it is in a middle school, because you have different periods. But they have 15 minutes of play for every 45 minutes of instruction. Because all research shows
What age, what grade that was?
every single grade, from the elementary up until the primary, and in the kindergarten, they have like an hour of play,
Is
an
it
hour of this.
15-minute chunks or 15 minutes, or an hour or 45 minutes?
45 minutes, exactly, it's by law. Then they have 45 minutes of instruction, and then they have 15 minutes
So it's
of play.
15-minute chunks.
15
So 9
minutes.
to 9:45, and then 9:35 to 10.
Right, right.
And then 10 to 10:45?
It would be like that, yeah, exactly. And then they're done at their school day at 1 o'clock. But, so, in the United States, right, when I do a lot of the research, and, I don't know if you guys, how many of you see those videos that are going around on, Facebook or Instagram, all these different things now about recess, right, and why recess is important. We all know that inherently. We all know that kids need to play, but we get bogged down by, we gotta finish this curriculum, we gotta finish that, we gotta do this, we gotta do that, and so we take it away. But really, we know, like I'm using quotes, that it saves us time in the school day to allow them to go outside, to have free time and to go play. If you see here that they are required, this is for one of the classes, that to go outside for those 15 minutes. And I said, well, what if it's raining? And she looked at me and laughed and said, they have an umbrella, and they have raincoats, and they have boots, right? So again, they're bringing in all these different elements so that we can enable them to be successful. And she said, I think the woman in the primary school was telling me that she could remember one time that they didn't allow the kids to go outside. And if there's an extenuating circumstance, obviously they'll allow them to be in for one of the breaks, she said. But the schools are set up for them to be successful. So they have awnings, and they have, a forest, and they bring their bikes, and they bring their rollerblades, and they have all of these different equipment for the kids to
Do they
play
have
with.
summer vacation?
Yes, they have them.
And in Finland, just the geography, does it get dark 24 hours a day?
It gets dark. It's not 24 hours, but it gets dark very early at certain times of the year, and especially in certain parts of the country.
That's what
Yeah.
But it doesn't get 20, there is some
It's
sun.
not 24 hours, yeah, it's sun. I think they were telling me, like, where I was, like in Helsinki, I think like 2 o'clock in the afternoon at one point it would get dark. So, yeah, they need all that sunlight in those hours, right? So play is really, really important. And I put this picture on here on purpose because you see that they're out in the snow playing and having a great time. And, we could talk about play for hours, and that could be a whole other session, but, play obviously teaches the kids so many different qualities that you're not gonna get from other things. And, the whole thing, like Abby was talking about, like not going into the classroom with mud on the shoes. And the whole big thing about the shoes, there's so much more to that, right? So in the kindergarten, they take them swimming. That means you take them on a bus, they have to get changed, they have to, right? They have to put on their bathing suits, they have to be responsible for their clothes, and they have to go in the pool. And I was talking to the kindergarten, she's like, that's no big deal. I'm like, I can't even take my own children to the pool without having a nervous breakdown. You're taking 24 kindergartners to the swimming pool? She's like, it's life. You need to prepare them for life. And I think, that's another sense of this whole thing, is how are we preparing children to be life learners? They need to know how to take off their shoes, put on slippers, right? Because that's what they do here, where they put on, different kinds of shoes. They didn't show that in the video, but where I was, they put on like these slipper type shoes. And they need to know how to put on their hats and how to put on their gloves and their scarves and their winter clothes and all of these different things to be prepared for what's coming. So it just makes a lot of sense. Yes.
We Jews are responsible for teaching our children to swim.
Yes.
Seriously, it's
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, the goal of education is to make a person successful in a society that wants to perpetuate that kind of society. So the girl with the cell phone, I would have thought it would be better if there was a mechanism for her to ask, without disrupting, could I be excused for 2 minutes?
Yeah.
See what I mean?
Mhm.
Because in adult life, in the middle of a meeting or something, you need permission to not disrupt
Yeah.
the situation.
Right, again, I'm not saying I agree or disagree with that situation, it was just like an interesting, something that came up in terms of, we were talking about discipline, yes,
Are teachers on the playground?
yes.
So,
They eat lunch with them, and they're on the playground with them, but they have a rotation, just like we would here, yeah,
because you said
yeah, they have bullying.
students don't, the teachers don't interfere for the most part.
Mhm.
How do they?
So I only broached that topic briefly with one person, so I don't know exactly how it's handled. I know that it is a problem, just like it would be anywhere else, and I think that the laid-back culture plays into that, like you said, because teachers are looked at as more facilitators, not as in they're calling the teachers by their first names, which the teachers don't like, by the way. The ones that I spoke to, they did not like that. They wanted to be like, at least like Miss Jen or something, not just the first name. But they don't really have that control over that. They said they deal with it like anything else. They have social emotional programs, they have counselors on hand. It's not just like pushed to the side, but they have teachers that go outside at recess on a rotation and this and that. But they did say that it is just like anywhere else.
Your friend who was in the more high school environment, where they have sex education classes?
I'm not
that you
sure.
were-
I'm sure they do, but it was not something that we talked about. Okay, kids have very little homework. So in Finland, they have very little nightly homework, and they are only given what they need to. And, it stems from this philosophy that, again, that there's a mutual level of trust between the teachers and the schools and the parents. So the parents are trusting that, okay, you go to school, you learn what you need to do, you don't have to come home and work on it again. And the teachers are trusting the students within the classroom that you're getting what you need during the day. And so they value the family time. Not that, that we don't here, but their rationale for that is that, like, when you're home, you're with your family, you'll come back the next day, and obviously it seems to be working for them. But, yeah, US, you know how we do that. But there are tons and tons of schools now in the United States that are saying that homework is not necessary. Again, there's always research to dispute research, but, the evidence here has proven that it is not beneficial.
They have some.
They have some where? In Finland, in the upper grades.
Right, that's where they say that homework is more beneficial in other grades.
Yeah, they don't have it in the elementary school, and certainly not in the younger grades. Okay.
Does the non-emphasis on homework conflict with the idea that education has to continue during the summer vacation? Where here people in an affluent environment have different enrichments going on.
Right.
But kids who are not in that situation lose much of what they have learned,
Mm-hmm.
whether in class or in class plus homework.
Right.
So I'm just seeing there's a little bit of
Mm-hmm.
a
I don't know what
conflict
they
there
do
in the
for
philosophy of the
summer
education.
homework. Yeah, I don't know. Not sure. Okay, so here we're talking about the ECEC, which is the Early Childhood Education and Care. So we've been talking about this, a little bit. But they have a high enrollment because they are extremely high quality preschools. They, like I stated before, they are teaching life skills. So they're coming out of these kindergartens ready for the primary school. Of course, you're gonna have an exception, right? But the majority are coming out and they are ready to go. They are ready to read, they are ready to learn, they are ready to be students, right? They're anxious to go and to do that. But it's set up so that you can leave one school, no matter where you are in the country, and go to the next primary school because, like we said before, they're collaborative, right? They're all kind of on the same curriculum, so it's an easy fix. Just in the, a little bit of the time, so we'll go to, okay, college tuition is free. So they subsidize even higher education, and so they have little to no loans to pay. And you see this quote, it says, "It takes a huge burden away from young people's minds when they don't need to wonder whether they can afford to pay for their studies." And it comes from the belief that higher education is a human right and also a great equalizer in our society. So let's all just go get our master's degree, because I was telling them before that in the Nordic countries, they had international students also can go for free, and then some of those countries took it away, but Finland has not taken that away yet.
They still have to qualify, get into college, or is everyone entitled to it?
So that's also a very interesting question. So we broached that topic. I don't know 100%, but what I gathered from what he was saying is that depending on, I think, what you want to go into, which I don't fully know the 100% on that, but that's kind of what he was saying. So next question, Lori. Yes.
So you mentioned that preschool goes through age 6, so our equivalent of, let's say, first grade. And then primary school is age 7 through 6th grade.
Right, so it'll be our equivalent of grades 1 through 6.
So some countries, like Israel used to have a system also where the 6th grade was part of the elementary school, and now it's predominantly changed.
Right.
Is there a developmental thinking behind how we broken up those grades? Did we discuss it?
They didn't discuss it, but it
We
was,
mostly moved 6th grade to 6th, 7th grade. You know.
right, right.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's all developmental, right? So they don't believe that kids until a certain age are ready to read. So when should you read? That should be in grade 1, and that's your age, so that's your 7. So they don't believe that, the 6th grade, they're still not mature enough, so that's not going to be in the secondary school, so we're gonna go ahead of that. Could say with certainty that that comes from research, and, yes.
Is that compulsory public service? I'm just saying, because you're saying kids graduate from high school at 19.
No, they graduate from high school
Do they have 12th grade?
at, yes. They're not graduating high school at 19.
They're starting first grade at 7.
I think they're turning 7 first grade.
Yeah,
We have that
they're
also.
not 19 when they graduate high school.
Kids here also turn 7 first
Yeah.
grade.
It depends on your age.
Right.
I mean, it depends on your birthday.
Yeah,
Um,
but that wouldn't be 19.
Okay.
No, I'm pretty sure they're not, because we talked about that, because they were saying that if 17 and 18-year-olds, right, even 16, it's maybe but that's what was said, that they had a decline in kids wanting to go after secondary school to the colleges, even though it's very, affordable, and that's what people do, but they were saying that the boys, more than the girls, were dropping out and didn't want to go further in their education. So the women in Finland hold higher esteemed professions than the men. So they're trying to do everything they can to try to get that to equal out. Okay, so, did you want to ask a question?
I said,
Oh.
about technology, thank you, is there, iPads and smart boards and that type of thing?
So they had smart boards, but the technology was very limited. I didn't see it anywhere. But then I was talking to one of the staff members about it in the primary school that I was in, and she said that, so this coming up school year, the younger kids are getting the iPads and the older kids are getting Chromebooks. But it's not a one-to-one. They're getting a certain amount per their class. But, I didn't really talk about this, but it's very simple there, right? A lot of the stuff that they do is simple. Here, we're always trying to do this and do that and what's better and what's best. And so they also think like that, right? And they're progressive, but, they don't feel like they need all of these different types of equipments to educate the children. That was one thing that we were talking about. Okay, so how can we make this a reality in our schools? Okay, and I think that that's, what everyone might be thinking right now. So I wanted to show you something really fast. I know that there's some controversy with Michael Moore, but he made a short little clip that I wanted to share with you about creating joy and positivity within our classrooms. Because we all know that when we're happier, it breeds happiness, right? And so one of the things that is really important to them, obviously, and all of us, should be to create a positive atmosphere. So after that, I want you guys to talk amongst yourselves about some of the ways that you create positive atmospheres within your classroom.
Yo, save her.
You need the volume? Well, this is Michael Moore's humor.
So here's what happened.
Go out.
When they tested those kids, both Finland and us were actually about the same, somewhere down the list of nations. But Finland didn't like them. So they tried some new ideas, and that was Finland shot at the top of the world. Their students. How would they do it? That was the one question I wanted to answer to. I went straight to city managers, supervisors, before I could say anything. She put it on the top secret.
Okay, so maybe we won't watch it then if we can't really hear, and I'll just tell you because of the essence of time. Unless you guys want to watch it. Do you want to watch it? I could send it to
I have a
you.
question.
Yeah.
One of the changes that they must have done is that they got 3 teachers in the classroom, because they always, even in the 60s, had 3 teachers in the classroom.
That's the, I don't know actually how far back it went. I don't know. But,
3 teachers in the classroom, 3 trained teachers in one classroom,
it's a lot.
is huge. It's like,
Remember, one is for special,
it doesn't
right?
matter,
But-
3 teachers, even modeling good behavior, 3 teachers is it like changes the entire dynamic of what's going on in the classroom, of who needs attention and who, it changes how much culture is brought into the classroom from the teacher rather than from the student side. It changes your entire classroom.
Yeah.
See, I look at it as, it's been proven, even though the United States doesn't believe that way, that children's brains are not ready to learn to read till they're 7 years old, they're in 2nd grade.
Right.
And so what do? We keep pushing them to preschool, we push them to before preschool, we're trying to get them to do the letters, we're trying to do all this pre stuff. And I've never agreed with it, ever, and I didn't do it with my son, including, and he's fine.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's what the motto is that Finland's doing. I mean, they're really going developmental and with brain development.
Yeah,
Your son probably
absolutely.
reads. Oh, yeah. And you know when he really learned? In 2nd grade.
Well, we're making some changes in Orchadash, and we can talk about that one later, but we are on the same page as you. Not 7th grade, but 1st grade, and we also firmly believe that that's the way to go. So basically, he was saying in this video that there's a positive atmosphere, which we've all seen, and that at the end of the day, right, besides the trust, besides this, besides that, they have joy. They're, like I was saying before, they're happy, and you see it on the kids' faces. And, Amy was saying, don't climb the tree, you're gonna fall, right? The kindergarten teacher was telling me that Datka put a swing set next to the gate. Because the American teacher was like, we would never put a swing set there. The kid can hurt himself, the gate could fly open, we wouldn't have swings. And, she was just like, you guys are crazy. Like, you have to trust that they're gonna be able to do the right things. And, they were saying in the video that they learn a lot from climbing trees. They learn about risk-taking. They learn about, problem solving, and collaborating with someone else. Are you there to catch me, right? So that was kind of what they were saying. So if you wanna take, 30 seconds to talk to your neighbor about what are some of the ways that you create a positive atmosphere within your classroom. Thank you very much.
And once the divorce rate, all those things can really affect, like the older the parents are and the more mature they are, understanding some of these factors. Kids develop a little differently.
Okay, so I'll tell you a little bit about what they do here. Maybe. Clicker not working? Clicker. Oh, yeah, is it in the regular space? Yeah, there you go. Okay, so this was my most favorite, right? This was my most favorite thing that I saw, respect, right? Because that word is universal, right? Doesn't matter how it's spelled, but it's a universal word, right? We all have to have respect. So some of the things that I, just from myself, that I found to create a positive atmosphere is mutual respect, right? Mutual respect between each other, mutual respect between the teachers and the students, and mutual respect between the parents, leadership, everybody. Natural light, okay? Natural light. Every single classroom, didn't matter what school we were in, everybody had natural light, and it really makes a humongous difference. And the last thing that I saw was peaceful, calm environment, right? We can talk about how do you create that, this and that, but a calm, peaceful atmosphere where you're mindful of yourselves and what's around you, right, creates a positive, joyous atmosphere. Okay, to be or not to be a zombie, right? So how many of you have kids sitting in your class and are like falling asleep, or they're not paying attention, they're looking out the window, right? We've lost them, they're done, right? So we were talking about this after a lot of continuous amounts of time, right? These children begin to act like that because they need a break. And that's what we're talking about. Those breaks before are so important. Going outside, rain or shine, getting that fresh air and having that break is so important. And all of the research shows that breaks need to happen regularly to benefit the students. So I would like to hear from you. How do you offer breaks within your class day? So you can, again, talk about it amongst yourselves. Trying, but I'm going to just start. All right, so we'll just go on the essence of time. But again here, fresh air has been proven to help the brain. So I heard somebody say brain break. So a lot of us do like the go noodle type of stuff, and that's a brain break within the classroom. You should regularly schedule time for breaks. This is an important one that I learned. Allowing the students to have choice time during their break. So oftentimes we'll say, okay, I have a break, you guys can have a break, and you can do this over here, and this over here, and this over here. But kids don't want to do that. If it's their break, they want to have the choice to do what they want to do on their break. So giving them choice time, and if you can't do it on a break, giving them choice time within their day is as equally important. Like I said, they bike, they rollerblade, they hang out and talk. So this was at the primary school that I was in. They're all in forests, so you can see here they all have their bikes. And then there are sheds with locks on them for all their other stuff. And I would just talk about the choice time. Okay, what's the purpose, right? Kids want to know why. Why am I learning this? Why am I doing this, right? We all want to know why, not just kids, but they want to know what is the purpose. So the goal of Make It Real is to promote a sense of purpose in the classroom. They want to see how does their schoolwork connect to the real world. And I have to say, just personally in my school, we concentrated on this in the General Studies Department this year, and each teacher had to come up with at least one. There was tons of other things about how to make the learning real. So, I'll show you some things in a second, but what does that look like for you? How do you make your learning real? How does it come alive in your classrooms that the children have an understanding of what they're doing actually applies? So, take a second to talk about that.
my fourth graders make a shuk. They learn about perot v'yirkot, and then they make a shuk for the school, and so all the kids learn how to buy and sell something in Hebrew.
And it's amazing. I can attest to that.
It feels like a shuk.
It does, it feels like a shuk, and they can't, you know, you can't give them the money, they talk back to you in Hebrew. It's beautiful, and that's exactly how to make it real. There's no other better example.
One thing would be to take some of the learning home and see if the parents are interested in talking about it. And that would obviously stimulate that, hey, I learned something and my parents are interested in this.
Right, absolutely, teaching it over, right, that's really important. So, here are a few things. So this was a room in the kindergarten that they had set up for project-based learning, and they were learning about space and rockets, and they had an engineer come in, and all the kids designed their own rockets, and how does that look like, how does it work, they shot them, and then they created this room to look like a space room, right? Make an ice cream shop, very simple. You're learning about, you know, customers and goods and services, a bank, a store. Participate in programs like BizTown. Did anyone here ever hear of BizTown? Right, so we took the kids this year, right? It was amazing, but they're learning about economics in their math, and what better way to go do that is to go to BizTown where you can run your own business. That's what it is, it's a bunch of businesses that are set out, and all the kids have to run them, but they have to know, what does it mean to be a CEO? What does it mean to be a CFO? What kind of qualities do I need to have, right? That's completely real world application, and Finland modeled their BizTown, right? It's called My City, off of the American BizTown. So we did something right. Using real objects, you know, like in my book, I'll show you that I have sticky notes all over because I look at it quite often. But even just using real needles, right? If you're learning something, you have to use the real object of what you're doing. Otherwise, it doesn't mean anything. Okay, and this is the last one. Okay, the triple C. And we talked a little bit about this already. Cooperation, collaboration, and confidence. But how does that bring joy, right? What does it have to do with anything, right? Why do those things bring joy? But when you're in a cooperative, calm environment, and you have great work-life balance, which I'm gonna bring to my friend because of my real life friend, right? Like work-life balance is very hard, and all of us, like, we don't know what that means, but they know what it means to live. And when they go home, they're not planning because they're confident in their work and their mission, and they know, okay, I'm gonna go do this next day, I don't have to sit there for hours and hours. You know, they have collaboration as a mindset. They know I'm going to go in and I'm going to work with my colleagues and I'm going to collaborate with people from here and I'm going to collaborate with people from there. And we talked about this in the first slide. There's no competition and everyone's in it together. And that creates a cooperative, calm, mindful environment, which ultimately leads to joy, in my opinion. And, you know, just in the essence of time, this was teachers hanging out with the lights off, candles lit, and the other side of the room was a massage chair. This was their faculty room, right? They are mandated to take a break. So when the kids are on a break, if they're not at a outside duty with them, the teachers are taking a break, right? They call it collaborate over coffee and come together and schmooze. They don't have their laptops out. They don't have their workout. They're not sitting at their computer. They're finding the time for joy. And some of the other things is when you're on vacation, vacate. Make time for yourself during the day, right? So when the kids are on the break, you're on the break. Do something you love. Be confident within your profession and collaborate with your colleagues. So those were the few things that I found to be joyous. And that is the end of my slideshow. Thank you. I really fast. Let's see who's listening. I have some prizes for you. Okay, how many meals a day are offered to the preschool kids if they're there from 6 o'clock in the morning until 6 o'clock at night?
2 meals plus a snack.
This
Great.
one?
All right, Yoda, you can get this. Ready? Woohoo! Okay, who is Posse Salberg? Yes, woohoo! I feel like you would like that.
I would.
Yes, okay, you're welcome. Okay, true or false? Teachers have autonomy over their work. True. Okay, here you go. You're welcome. Okay. Oh, I don't know if I said this, but I think we could fill the blank in. Education is a basic blank right.
Human.
Human. Woohoo! What's the ratio of break to lesson time? Yes. Here you go.
Oh, it's got graph paper.
All right. Why is homework limited?
Homework is fun.
Yes.
Kids as long as they can.
Okay, what age do kids graduate out of the early childhood program?
7.
That's debatable, but who said 6, 7? Right? Okay, here you go. You're welcome. What does it mean to make it real?
Relevant,
What?
relevant to your general life. and
Right.
what's going on.
Okay, I have a few things left here. Okay, I have one more. What's the #1 key to being successful? Who said trust first? Woohoo! Okay, thank you all so much for coming.
Good job.
I really appreciate it. This is also part of it, but we didn't have time, but I made you a successful checklist. So you can fill in here, you know, positive classroom, break time, make it real, and then, you know, during your school day, keep it with you and check it off so you know that you learned something, you worked through it, and we're all here to, you know, take what we've learned and then to apply it. So feel free to take one if you'd like. I'll be here, okay? Have a great day. Thank you.
so much. Thank all of you for coming. Just curious.